Every year, a multi-billion-dollar industry convinces you to declare war on this plant. You've been told it's a weed, a nuisance to be pulled, poisoned, and completely destroyed. You see it as a flaw in that perfect green carpet of your lawn, an invader to be wiped out at all costs. But what if you're making a mistake? What if by killing this plant, you are destroying one of the most useful and historically important plants that's growing right in your own backyard? This common cheerful yellow flower has a secret history. It's a story of survival, of ancient healing, and of incredible nutrition that has been buried under a mountain of marketing from the lawn chemical industry. They need you to see a pest. They want you to buy their products to kill it, but they don't want you to know what it really is. Today, we expose the truth about the humble dandelion. We'll dig into the science that's now starting to prove what traditional healers have known for centuries. And we'll ask the hard question, why is an industry spending billions of dollars to kill a plant that could be a free source of health and wellness? Stick around, because after this, you'll never look at your lawn the same way again. Before we uncover the secrets hidden in this plant, you need to understand the sheer scale of the campaign against it. The perfectly manicured emerald green lawn isn't natural. It's an artificial ideal, a monoculture that requires constant, aggressive force to maintain. And at the heart of that force is a colossal industry. The global herbicide market is an economic juggernaut. Market analyses project its value to grow from around $34 billion today to over $50 billion by 2034. And while most of that is aimed at large-scale agriculture, a huge part of the multi-billion-dollar lawn and garden industry is focused right on your yard. We spend a fortune chasing an aesthetic, a flawless, uniform green that leaves no room for anything that dares to be different. And what's public enemy number one in this war for lawn perfection? The dandelion. Why the intense focus on this one plant? Because the dandelion is the ultimate survivor. Its deep taproot makes it incredibly hard to get rid of. Pull the top, and the root stays, ready to sprout again. Mow it down, and it just grows back, often flowering below the mower blades. It's resilient, persistent, and a constant threat to the controlled environment of the modern lawn. This is where the chemical industry steps in, offering a simple solution in a bottle. The marketing has been so effective that for generations, the default response to seeing a yellow flower in the grass is to reach for a sprayer. We've been conditioned to see it not as a plant, but as a problem. The sales pitch is brilliant, really. Dandelions are weeds. Weeds are bad. And you need our products to get rid of them. It's a cycle of manufactured need that props up a massive industry. But this story conveniently leaves out one crucial detail: the history and value of the very plant they've taught us to hate. While we've been spending our money and weekends trying to poison it, we've been destroying a free, potent source of food and medicine our ancestors treasured. The irony is staggering. They're selling us poison, while we unknowingly trample the remedy. It's time to ask why we fell for it. The dandelion, or Taraxacum officinale, didn't just show up in our lawns. It's a world traveler with a history as rich and deep as its taproot. Though we see it everywhere in North America, it's not from here. It's an immigrant. It's believed that European settlers brought it with them in the 1600s, not as an accident, but as a prized possession. They didn't bring it to be a pest. They brought it as a key part of their mobile medicine chest and food supply. Long before the invention of the suburban lawn, the dandelion was held in high esteem across Eurasia. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans all knew of its properties. In traditional Chinese medicine, its use is documented for over 1,000 years, where it's known as pu gong ying. It was considered a powerful herb for clearing heat, reducing inflammation, and detoxifying the body, and it's still a key ingredient in many traditional formulas today. Arab physicians and European herbalists in the Middle Ages prescribed it for everything from fevers and warts to liver troubles. Its name, dandelion, comes from the French dent de lion, meaning lion's tooth, a nod to the jagged edges of its leaves. Even its official botanical name, Taraxacum officinale, tells a story. Officinale is a label given to plants with a long-established history of medicinal use. It meant it was part of the official supply of apothecaries. When it got to North America, it was quickly adopted into the traditional medicine of many Native American tribes. They recognized its value as both a potent medicine and a nutrient-dense food. So, what happened? How did a plant with such a distinguished global history become a reviled weed? The shift happened pretty recently with the rise of suburban culture in the 20th century. The ideal of the pristine, uniform lawn, an aesthetic borrowed from the European aristocracy, took hold. In this new look, there was no room for diversity. The dandelion with its bright yellow flower was a nonconformist in a sea of controlled green. The post-war chemical boom provided the weapons for this new aesthetic war, and marketing did the rest. An entire industry was built on convincing people that their yards should be sterile carpets, and that any plant that deviates is an enemy. The dandelion's resilience made it the perfect villain for this story. In just a few generations, centuries of herbal wisdom were paved over by marketing slogans. The medicine chest in our backyards was rebranded as a battlefield, and we became the willing soldiers in a war against our own natural inheritance. For centuries, herbalists didn't need labs to know that dandelion was powerful. They knew from experience, passed down through generations. But today, we want data. And this is where it gets really interesting. Modern science is finally starting to catch up with ancient wisdom, and the findings are confirming what healers have known all along. The dandelion isn't just a weed, it's a complex biochemical factory. Long before we were obsessed with superfoods like kale, dandelion greens were a nutritional staple, and when you compare them gram for gram, they can hold their own against, and sometimes even surpass, today's popular greens. They are loaded with vitamins and minerals. For instance, dandelion greens are packed with vitamin A, crucial for vision and immune function. They're also an excellent source of vitamin K, which is essential for blood clotting and bone health, with amounts that can exceed both spinach and kale in some comparisons. They're also full of vitamin C, vitamin E, iron, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. The next time you pay a premium for a bag of power greens, just remember that a version of it is likely growing for free right outside your door. One of the most celebrated traditional uses of dandelion, especially the root, is as a tonic for the liver and digestive system. Dandelion is a bitter herb, and that bitter flavor is key for healthy digestion. It stimulates saliva, stomach acid, and digestive enzymes, getting your whole body ready to process food. But there's more. The dandelion root is incredibly rich in a type of fiber called inulin. You've probably heard of prebiotics. They're the food for the good bacteria, the probiotics, in your gut. Inulin is a fantastic source of this. By feeding your healthy gut flora, dandelion root helps build a strong gut microbiome, which is the foundation of overall health, from digestion and immunity to even mental well-being. Now let's talk about the idea that dandelion has antibiotic properties. This needs a careful, responsible look. For years, researchers have been documenting dandelion's antimicrobial effects in lab settings. These are in vitro studies, where plant extracts are tested against bacteria in a petri dish. And the results are consistently impressive. Study after study has shown that extracts from dandelion can inhibit the growth of a wide range of microbes. Some lab studies have found that certain extracts show significant activity against harmful bacteria like Staphylococcus aureus, the cause of staph infections, and Escherichia coli. Some of this research has even tested these extracts against antibiotic-resistant strains like MRSA and found that dandelion showed inhibitory effects. The power seems to come from a whole symphony of compounds, like flavonoids and terpenoids that work together. Now, let's be crystal clear, what happens in a petri dish is a world away from what happens in the human body. No one should be replacing a prescribed antibiotic for a serious infection with dandelion tea. But the evidence is too compelling to ignore. It validates the traditional use of dandelion for infections, and shows it's not just an inert weed. It possesses a complex arsenal of compounds that can and do fight microbes. On top of all that, every part of the dandelion, root, leaf, and flower, is packed with antioxidants. These compounds help protect your body from something called oxidative stress, a process that damages cells and is considered a key driver of aging and many chronic diseases. By providing a rich source of antioxidants, dandelion helps protect the body from this constant damage, which is also linked to its anti-inflammatory effects. The scientific evidence is mounting. The plant we've been taught to hate is a source of elite nutrition, a supporter of gut health, and a reservoir of antimicrobial and antioxidant compounds. This isn't folklore, it's biology. And it begs the question, if this plant is so beneficial, why is the focus only on killing it? This is where the story goes from forgotten wisdom to modern economics. Why would a plant with so much potential be ignored by the industries that claim to be dedicated to our health? The answer is as simple as it is cynical. You can't patent a wild dandelion. The business model of the pharmaceutical industry is built on intellectual property. Companies invest billions to create new, synthetic compounds that can be patented. A patent gives them exclusive rights to sell a drug for years, allowing them to make huge profits without competition. A plant that grows freely all over the world is a threat to this model. Why would a company invest millions developing a new antimicrobial agent when a key to fighting bacteria might be in a plant that's unpatentable and free for everyone? But here's the catch. While they can't patent the plant God gave us, they are racing to patent the process of extracting its power. A quick search of patent databases shows a fascinating trend. You'll find numerous patents for methods of extracting specific compounds from Taraxacum officinale. There are patents for processes to isolate its antioxidant flavonoids or create specific formulations for use in cosmetics or medicines. This is how it works. Step 1. The plant itself is dismissed as a useless weed. Step 2. Research quietly identifies its most powerful compounds. Step 3. A complex method for extracting or synthesizing these compounds is developed. Step 4. That method is patented, creating a new, profitable product that the company now controls. They take the power that exists freely in nature, lock it up in a lab, and plan to sell it back to you at a premium. We see this pattern with other natural remedies. Turmeric becomes concentrated curcumin extract. Willow bark becomes aspirin. Nature provides the blueprint, and industry finds a way to monetize it. This isn't some secret plot. It's just the logical outcome of a system that prioritizes profit over public access to natural health. The herbicide industry profits by convincing you the plant must be destroyed. Then, other industries can work on owning the rights to its most valuable components. The result is that we, the public, are kept in the dark. We are sold one story, that the dandelion is a pest, while a completely different story unfolds in labs and patent offices. Knowing the truth is one thing. Using that knowledge is where the real power is. It's time to stop seeing your yard as a battleground and start seeing it as a pharmacy and a pantry. But before you run outside, you need to do it safely. First, proper identification. The common dandelion, Taraxacum officinale, is easy to spot but has some lookalikes. The key features are a single, hollow, leafless stem leading to one yellow flower. The leaves are smooth, not hairy, and grow in a flat circle against the ground with that sugradas, those classic lion's tooth edges. If it has branched stems or hairy leaves, it's not a true dandelion. Second, and this is critical, harvest safely. You must be absolutely certain the area hasn't been sprayed with chemicals. This means your own organically maintained lawn, a trusted friend's yard, or a wild area far away from roads, industrial zones, or big farms. The leaves are best in early spring before the plant flowers, when they're most tender. The roots are best in the late fall or very early spring when the plant's energy is stored underground. Now for the fun part. You can use every part of this plant. The easiest medicine, dandelion tea. For flower tea, gather a handful of fresh dandelion flower heads. Put about 8 to 10 of them in a mug, pour boiling water over them, and steep for 10 to 15 minutes. It has a delicate, surprisingly sweet taste. For root tea. This is the more traditional medicinal tea, especially for digestive support. Dig up the roots and scrub them clean. Chop them into small pieces. For a richer flavor, spread them on a baking sheet and roast in an oven at a low temperature, around 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 95 degrees Celsius, for 1 to 2 hours until they're dry and dark brown. Then you can store them in a jar. To make tea, simmer about 1 tablespoon of the roasted root per cup of water for 15 to 20 minutes, then strain. The flavor is rich, earthy, and almost coffee-like, from weed to salad green. Eating dandelion leaves. Young spring leaves are a fantastic, slightly bitter addition to salads, much like arugula. As they get older, they get more bitter. You can soften this by blanching them in boiling water for a minute, then dropping them into ice water. They're delicious sautéed with garlic and olive oil, just like spinach. A simple infused oil for skin. You can make a simple, soothing oil with the flowers. Fill a small glass jar about halfway with dandelion flowers. Let them wilt for a day to reduce their water content. Place the wilted flowers in the jar and cover them completely with olive or almond oil. Seal the jar and let it sit in a sunny window for 2 to 4 weeks, shaking it daily. Strain the oil through a cheesecloth, and you'll have a golden-hued dandelion oil that's great for dry, irritated skin. When you do these simple things, you're doing more than making tea. You're taking part in an act of rebellion. You're rejecting a wasteful industrial story and reclaiming a piece of your own health independence. Okay, this is the most important part. With this knowledge comes responsibility. While dandelion is an amazing plant, it's not a magic cure-all. and you have to use it with common sense. First, allergies. Dandelion is in the same family as ragweed, marigolds, and daisies. If you're allergic to those, you might react to dandelion too. Always start with a very small amount to see how your body responds. Second, medication interactions. This is incredibly important. Dandelion can act as a diuretic, so taking it with prescription water pills could cause issues. Because of its potassium content, you need to be cautious if you're on certain blood pressure or heart medications. It might also slow blood clotting, so if you're on blood thinners like warfarin, you absolutely must talk to your doctor. It could also affect how your liver processes certain drugs. If you are taking any prescription medication or have a pre-existing health condition, especially with your gallbladder or kidneys, it is your responsibility to speak with a doctor, pharmacist, or qualified herbalist before using dandelion medicinally. And that brings us to the most critical point. Let me say this again because it's that important. This information is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. The lab evidence for dandelion's properties is exciting, but it has not been proven as a replacement for prescription antibiotics in people. Trying to treat a serious infection like pneumonia or a severe staph infection with dandelion would be dangerous. See a doctor. The goal here is to empower you with tools for wellness and prevention, not to encourage reckless behavior. If what you've heard today makes sense to you, then this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a shift in how you see the world. You're now part of a movement of people choosing to look past the marketing and reconnect with nature. Don't let this knowledge stop with you. Share this video with a friend or family member who fights a losing battle with their lawn every weekend. Talk about it. The more people who understand the real value of this plant, the weaker the grip of the industry that profits from our ignorance becomes. And this is just the beginning. The dandelion is just one of many so-called weeds with hidden powers. If you want to keep discovering the pharmacy waiting outside your door, make sure you subscribe. Most importantly, let's build a community of knowledge right here. What are your experiences with dandelion? Does your family have a traditional use for it? Share your stories and recipes in the comments below. Let's create our own modern library of shared experience to fight the narrative we've all been sold. We started with a simple plant. A yellow flower most of us have been taught to see as a problem to be solved with chemicals and hard labor. But we've discovered a very different story. The dandelion is not a flaw in the landscape. It's a symbol of resilience. It's a symbol of nature's generosity, offering up potent nutrition and complex medicine completely free of charge. And it's a powerful teacher. It teaches us to question the stories we're sold, especially when there's a massive industry that profits from them. It challenges the very idea of a weed, forcing us to ask, who decides which plants are worthy and which must be destroyed? The next time you walk outside and see that familiar yellow head looking up at you from the grass, you'll have a choice. You can see it through the lens of the chemical companies, as a pest, an enemy in a war for a perfect lawn. Or, you can see it for what it truly is, a historical treasure, a nutritional powerhouse, a medicinal ally, and a quiet act of rebellion. You no longer have to be a soldier in their war. You can be a student in nature's garden. The choice is yours. What will you see? But the real ending of this story is not what happens to the dandelion. The real ending is what happens inside your mind after you learn the truth. Because once you understand how a plant can be turned from medicine into a weed through marketing, you begin to question many other things around you. You start asking, how many other useful plants have been pushed out of our lives? How many natural foods, roots, leaves, and flowers were once part of daily healing, but are now ignored because nobody can make billions from them in their simple form? That is the bigger lesson here. The dandelion is not just a plant growing in the yard. It is a doorway into a forgotten world where people paid attention to nature, respected the seasons, and understood that health did not always come from a bottle. It came from the soil, from the garden, from bitter leaves, from roots, from sunlight, and from small daily habits that supported the body before disease became serious. And this is why the dandelion matters so much today. It reminds us that sometimes the most powerful things are not rare, expensive, or locked behind a prescription. Sometimes they are common. Sometimes they are stepped on. Sometimes they are growing right under our feet. Now think about this carefully. The modern world has trained us to believe that value comes from price. If something is expensive, we assume it must be powerful. If something comes in a shiny package, we assume it must be advanced. If something is sold in a store, with a label and a brand name, we trust it more than something growing freely in the ground. But nature does not work that way. Nature often hides value in plain sight. The dandelion does not need advertising. It does not need a celebrity endorsement. It does not need a fancy bottle or a luxury price tag. It simply grows. It survives poor soil, harsh weather, mowing, pulling, spraying, and honestly, even neglect. And maybe that is part of its message. It teaches resilience. It teaches that life keeps pushing upward, even when everything tries to suppress it. That same resilience is what made traditional healers respect it for centuries. They saw that a plant strong enough to survive in difficult conditions might also carry strong compounds inside it. And, modern science, while still limited and cautious, is beginning to show that this old instinct was not foolish. Dandelion contains nutrients, antioxidants, bitter compounds, and plant chemicals that really deserve attention. It may not be a miracle cure, and it should never replace medical treatment when medical treatment is needed, but it is also not useless. It is not just lawn trash. It is part of a much larger conversation about food, medicine, prevention, and freedom. And freedom is the word we need to sit with for a moment, because every time you learn how to identify a useful plant, every time you understand how to prepare a simple tea, every time you grow something in your garden or harvest something safely from clean soil, you become a little less dependent on systems that want you to only consume and never question. That does not mean rejecting doctors. It does not mean rejecting science. It does not mean pretending serious illness can be fixed with a backyard leaf. That would be irresponsible. Real health wisdom is, balanced. It respects modern medicine when it is needed, but it also respects the ancient knowledge that helped people survive for thousands of years before modern systems existed. The problem is not medicine itself. The problem is forgetting that the body also needs nourishment, movement, sunlight, minerals, clean water, bitter foods, fiber, rest, and a healthy relationship with nature. Dandelion is one small symbol of that forgotten relationship. It tells us that healing is not always about fighting the body. Sometimes it is about supporting the body. Sometimes it is about helping digestion work better, feeding good gut bacteria, adding minerals back into the diet, reducing unnecessary chemicals around the home, and becoming more aware of what we destroy without thinking. So the next time you see someone spraying a lawn full of dandelions, you may see the scene differently. You may not judge them, because most of us were taught the same story. We were taught that a perfect lawn is a clean lawn. We were taught that yellow flowers are ugly mistakes. We were taught that wild plants are messy, useless, and embarrassing. But now you know there is another side to the story. A lawn full of dandelions may actually be a sign of life. It may be feeding bees when few other flowers are blooming. It may be protecting soil. It may be offering food and traditional medicine. It may be showing us that nature does not care about our artificial standards of beauty. Nature cares about survival, balance, and renewal. And maybe we should care about those things too. Because a perfect-looking lawn sprayed with chemicals may look beautiful from a distance, but what is the cost? What happens to the soil? What happens to the insects? What happens to the water that carries those chemicals away? What happens to children and pets rolling in that grass? These are questions worth asking, not because fear should control us, but because awareness should guide us. And if you want to begin with dandelion, begin slowly. Do not rush. Do not harvest from roadsides, sprayed parks, or unknown yards. Do not assume every yellow flower is safe. Learn the plant properly. Learn its lookalikes. Start with one simple step, like buying organic dried dandelion root tea from a trusted source, or adding a few young clean leaves to a salad if you are absolutely sure they are safe. Listen to your body. If you take medications, especially blood thinners, water pills, diabetes drugs, blood pressure medicines, or have kidney, liver, or gallbladder problems, speak with a qualified professional first. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. Nature's powerful. And powerful things deserve respect. Even common plants can interact with the body in real ways. The goal is not to replace good medical care. The goal is to rebuild common sense around health. The goal is to stop seeing every old remedy as foolish and every modern product as automatically superior. The truth is usually more balanced than that. And maybe that balance is exactly what we have lost. We live in a time where people are overfed but undernourished, surrounded by information but disconnected from wisdom, spending more money on health than ever before while many feel weaker, more tired, more inflamed, and honestly just more confused. The dandelion will not solve all of that. No single plant can. But, it can start a conversation. It can make us look down at the ground and realize that we have been walking past answers because we were trained to see them as problems. It can remind us that bitter foods once had a place in the diet for a reason. It can remind us that roots, leaves, and flowers were not just decorations, they were tools. It can remind us that health is not just something we buy after the body breaks down. Health is something we build daily, quietly, with choices that may seem small but add up over time. So when this video ends, do not just remember dandelion as a weed with benefits, remember it as a lesson in perception. One person sees a nuisance, another sees food, another sees medicine, another sees profit, another sees a threat to an industry. The plan is the same, only the story changes. And that is why you must be careful about the stories you accept, because the story you believe can decide what you destroy and what you protect. It can decide whether you spray poison on a healing plant, or kneel down and study it. It can decide whether you live as a passive consumer or an active student of nature. The dandelion has been waiting patiently for us to remember. It has survived our lawns, our chemicals, our ignorance, and our need to control everything. And still, every spring, it comes back with that bright yellow face, asking nothing from us, offering everything it has. Maybe the question is not, why is this weed in my yard? Maybe the better question is, why was I taught to hate something so useful? And once you ask that question, you may never look at your backyard, your food, your medicine cabinet, or even your health the same way again. That is the real power of the dandelion, not just what it can do inside the body, but what it can awaken inside the mind. It invites you to slow down, look closer, question deeper, and remember that nature has always been speaking. The only question is whether we are finally ready to listen.